what. So I'm just gonna look at this little dot right here and pretend like I'm focused. All right, guys. So thank you so much for being here. Reminder that we are Zoom live right now. We're streaming to our YouTube channel as well. So for those that didn't know that we've got a YouTube channel, we do. Make sure you subscribe and search for Keller Williams San Diego Metro. We're also going to have our team meetings and the trainings scheduled there as well. So this is a good opportunity that if you know anybody that's looking for that type of insight, see our wild quirks and whatnot, hey, have at it, invite them there. So wanting to give a nice congratulations and a warm welcome to our newest Metro family members, starting out with Izzy. Izzy is part of the... Oh, yes. I can't tell how to stay on track here, y'all. Because he's like, no, this one. I'm like, I'm following this. I'm following this. All right. So I wanted to give a warm welcome to Izzy. She's part of the Lee Home team and recently passed her exam last week. So congrats and welcome, Izzy. We also have Dylan Sensky. She's going to be joining Nikki Francis and Chris Patricia with our commercial team, as well as Amanda Abruzzo Cook is going to be joining the Taylor team. So welcome to all of those family members. Welcome, welcome. So when you see these friendly faces, make sure you give a nice high five as well. So bucket fills. Let's kick some things off with some good vibes. So whose bucket would you like to fill today, or what are you grateful for? Please share something.
I have one.
Bucket fills? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, thanks, Trish. So I had posted something on the group page about donations for a school in the Philippines where a friend of mine is a teacher. And I just wanted to say a couple of agents came forward and donated some money that allowed them to go ahead and purchase some hand and foot washing equipment that they need so that it's part of their school protocol now for COVID. So I just wanted to say thank you to those agents that participated in that. That's greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Thank you. All right, Trish, you got something as well. Oh, you're muted, darling.
Trish, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Now, yes, yes, perfect.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Yes, these are amazing, dedicated individuals. Dana Dodson, I don't know what I would do without her. Justin and Vanessa at A+ Escrow, extraordinary people. It's the first time I got to work with Justin, and he's amazing. Hands down. So he goes above and beyond, and so does Dana. Broker Bob was helpful to me. Drew and Nancy, personally and professionally, all these people. Ashley for the therapeutic healing, for our daily conversations that I can't even say enough about all this stuff, but it's been building up in me. I've got it pent up, so I'm letting it out now. These come-togethers, they've been powerful, and I wanted to say thank you to everyone that's been brave enough to share and share their stories, and I'm just so grateful. I'm not one that jumps in and speaks up or gets my chats out fast enough. I can't type that fast, so I kind of ruminate and think about it, and I'll write about it later. But I can't say enough about everybody that is associated with our company, and I'm just so proud to be part of this company. And so
well, we really are incredibly grateful for you, because I know that we've got 50 some odd people on this call, and I think this goes almost without saying, but shouldn't be unrecognized from time to time, that yes, we're a quirky group and we are a collective group of wonderful people, and it's a tribe. It's a tribe and a family that we got going on here. So thank you, for sometimes just validating, what a lot of people put in the hard work, not always seeing, the other side of it and how it's received. So thank you for voicing that out. Makes us all feel really good here.
Thank you.
I have a shout out.
Yeah, Pegasus.
I got a shout out for Mr. Jay Lee of the Lee team. I gave him a call, just a random call. It wasn't, planned. There was no appointment. And he picked up the phone. And not only did he pick up the phone, but he was available to me in a time when I was really struggling because I was nervous about something that I had to do in real estate, and he gave me his time. Not only that, he pulled up his computer and he literally went through properties with me, and he just took the time, and I didn't expect it. And it's really hard to think that somebody would do that when you're in a kind of like a, enmeshed with yourself. And I want to thank Jay Lee very, very much.
Thank you for shouting them out. Thank you, Jay. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Well, these are some good vibes. These are some good vibes. Well, let's broker updates. Broker Bob. So can you give us an update on the launching growth coaching, please?
Thank you, Stephen. I'm here to remind everybody, please wear a mask out in public. You may have seen my recent social media post where I use the F word. And I use the F word because I'm mad and I want us to stop the spread of this virus, but also keep our real estate business open. So that's why I apologize in advance if you didn't like my language. Anyway, we want to do a huge shout out to Jenna Clinchock for her got her first BRE signed. She's in launch with Alicia. And then congratulations to Robert Jones, got his first BRE signed. He's in launch with Clarissa and Barb. Great job, guys. Keep up the great work. The real estate market is picking up steam. And no broker updates. We'll save that for risk management portion.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, and so in speaking of the market picking up, who's got some properties that are coming soon to the market?
I do.
Yes, Kathy.
So I know I put it on the inner office page a couple of weeks ago, but there is I don't think I mentioned this yet, an oceanside house that's attached on one side, twin home. It's going to be $479. The tenant's getting out of it now. It's not even in coming soon status because they're just going to kind of, clean it up a little bit, but it's $479, 1,400 square feet, a nice yard, 2-car garage, three bedroom with a study, 2 baths, cathedral ceiling, oceanside. That's a tough price range. That's a really tough price range. So coming up.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What else do we have coming up? Going once, going twice, and rolling on into, then if you just didn't quite hit that unmute button, or if we didn't see a waving, just make sure to post in the chat box as well as the inter-office page. Just so y'all know, we're getting some really good traction from conversations. I've had some agents share with me that whenever agents are sharing like a coming soon or a property in which people know of, sellers that are interested in looking for buyers, those that are prospecting around it are actually making some really good progress and headway in reaching out and getting more leads. So make sure that if you have any properties that we didn't highlight here, just make sure to post it to the inner office page, and we'll be sure to prospect around it, help you get some buyers there. Same thing with buyer needs. Make sure to post those in the inter office page as well for our prospecting kings and queens and everybody in between. That way they can make those contacts and drive more business, not only for them, but for you as well. All right, that's the fastest wham bam thank you all that I got. I'm going to give it over to Robert.
Really fun stuff. I'm taking roll call right now. Is Ashley here? Is Nancy here? Is Evie here?
Here.
They all said they were going to be doing something during my risk management portion of the meeting. So I'm just making sure they're paying attention. Hey guys, I'm going to try and keep this as light as possible today and also informative for you from a risk management perspective. So I'm going to drop in the chat bar right now is access to a Google folder that everybody should have access to. If you don't, you now should click on that link and save that link in your bookmarks, because there's some important information in there that we've accumulated stuff that everything you need to know. And I'm going to share my screen right now so we can go over that. So grab your coffee, get your latte. We're going to have some fun today. I know this is risk management. Everybody loves risk management, especially Alicia and Joe, which they're probably sitting on Alicia's patio, having some fun in the sun. Anyway, so here's what we got right now. In this folder, it's going to be broken out to a few tabs that are really important that you want to know. One of them is the COVID folder. And in the COVID folder, what we've added and keep adding and keep changing primarily is the BPPP, which is the mandatory government showing that the last update came July 15th. And then our mandatory office training that we're required to have for you guys, as well as our COVID prevention plan that we've established in the office. And then one of the important documents, because we get asked this a lot from a compliance standpoint, when you take a new listing, you got a buyer and escrow, what are the COVID forms? And in this form is the most up-to-date, a quick summary of all of the forms. Now, I'm not going to go through all the forms today because that would bore you to death. I just am doing all this today. It's like, where do you get the information needed to understand what you need to have for your listings and your purchase agreements? And then you'll see stuff in there that says old, do not use. That means we had to update it. So we've already had 2 updates. And then you got the San Diego Metro logos in here that you can go in and pull at any time. And then there's this wonderful KW Metro Agent Handbook. You know, in the chat bar, put a thumbs up if you didn't know that we even had this, or let me know if you are using it. But this is a really great handbook that we spend a lot of time on. We have our staff directory in it, including all the leadership and our transaction coordinators, our productivity coaches, our in-house partners, and we even include our ALC members. We've got important office information, marketing and technology, your first transaction, coaching and business development, KW culture, where to find trainings, Keller Williams glossary, and then office strategic marketing partners. Everything you need to know about the office is in this handbook. So without going through it, I just want to give you guys information on where to find it. Oh, and by the way, I want to let you guys know that we also have Mark that's going to be on the call today, Mark Miller, our wonderful compliance officer, that is going to be, we're going to be tag teaming some of this stuff today. So we'll get to the meat of the conversation soon. Just know that I'm just doing some review right now. And then we have our KW Metro broker policies. This is everything you need to know in the policies that we've put together in relationship to California real estate law. So we are changing this out usually about once or twice a year, but we also find at times we need to add some stuff. So you'll know that that's there. We also know, I saw on, oops, that is not in a format that I'm going to open up with, but who speaks different languages in our office? I saw somebody ask on the Facebook page today, who speaks Farsi? Well, if you'd known it was here, you could have gone here rather than going to Facebook and asking people and wasting their time. Alicia, just kidding. But what we're going to be covering today is we've made what you need in each transaction to follow and make sure that your initial review, and then mostly your initial review will get a great review from Mark. And we all know that when you do a transaction, primarily with Keller Williams Metro, you have the responsibility of making sure that you upload that into the compliance process within 2 business days after opening. So it includes all new purchase agreements and listing agreements. So keep that in mind, that it's not just purchase agreements, and it's not when you put the listing that you have into escrow. We also need to have it when you take the listing, just like you have to submit it with the MLS, you have to submit it with the compliance department. So you can use this as your checklist because again, when Mark does his initial reviews and even final reviews, what he does primarily is he goes through and he lets you know what's missing in the in regards to documents for opening. And usually about 99% of the time, I think RDR is happening because the stuff has an RDR. If you know what RDR means, you can put that in the chat box. We don't see that the stuff is being added into the transaction. And so I've done this risk management topic before, and I find that it's great to bring it back on an annual basis just to remind people what they need, but most importantly, why you need it from a risk management perspective. And I think that's more important once you understand why you need it in there, so that in case there ever is a claim or there's a challenge with your buyer or seller and they're coming after you because of some issue, we have our I's dotted and our T's crossed. So initial items, buyer sides, let's just cover that first. So when you go into Zip Form Broker Edition, you're going to create whether it's a listing or a purchase, and a majority of these will be already in the template. You won't need to add it. And by the way, if it's in the template, you don't remove it. Mark sees that occasionally. So on a purchase, and all these, the agency disclosure, the PRBS, the wire fraud, the RPA, and the BIA, and the CCPA, that's a new form this year that CAR has come out with because there's a new law in the state of California about California Consumer Protection Act. That's all in the one document that's loaded in there. So 99.9% of the time, you'll have your buyer sign every portion of that when they sign the purchase agreement. Is that correct, Mark?
Yeah, that's correct. And there's a couple of things in the RPA that when you are going to create a digital signature envelope and send it out, you should scroll through that document and make sure that all the signatures are in the places where you want them. Especially like section 21 and 22, those are the arbitration and liquidated damages sections. Those are elective sections, meaning the buyer and seller have to choose whether they want to do it or not. So sometimes the fields are not predefined there. So check that out. And then scroll all the way to the bottom, because right now that CCPA form is not being signed in many contracts. And it's because, I believe it's because there's a programming error in the form. And I've reported that to ZipLogix, and we'll see if they get that fixed. But if you scroll down to that CCPA in your RPA package or RLA package, and you see that there's no signature field there, please put one there.
And I'm just scrolling through the chat box, and I want to say, if Ariana, if you're on the call, I understand that John Field says he can speak Spanish when he's drunk. Alicia pointed out that I'm rude. And Joseph was the first one that defined what RDR was. Realtors don't read, so he wins the prize for the week. Okay, great, moving on. And then the next thing in the transaction, if you are representing a buyer with an FHA finance purchase, and that's in the contract, you have to have the HID. And that's the home inspection disclosure. And the buyer needs to sign this when they sign the purchase agreement. Correct, Mark?
Yeah, that's a statutory requirement if they're using FHA financing. You can add that form into any transaction if you want to, but specifically FHA, it's required at the time the contract is signed.
And then we're going to move into some anew, the Corona, I'll just call them Corona forms, all the forms that have come out. And the CVA is a document that we're seeing part of it. They're in some of the transactions, they're not in some of the transactions. Some of it could be for the industry, not in our office, but in the industry, especially on the listing side. Here's the CVA, in my opinion, the broker's advice. It should be, if you're representing a buyer, you should use the CVA form. On the listing side, it could benefit the seller if the seller had a CVA issue. but it's mostly benefiting the buyer if the buyer can't move forward with the contract, in my simplistic view. Now there's other things to look at within that, but that's my simplistic view on it. And Mark has it tagged as if applicable, meaning, do you think it's a form that should be in there because maybe the buyer is at high risk? Maybe they're a doctor or a nurse, or they work in the healthcare, or they're frontline worker. You really got to understand on a case-by-case basis. And I don't want to get into the the Corona forms in too much detail, other than just to say, if applicable. And then also, we used to cover these on some calls early on how to fill them out as they were coming on board. But I also want to note on YouTube, you should also bookmark this on YouTube. It's the Car Realtors YouTube channel. And you go into the video section, and if you really need a quick tip or a quick guide on how to fill out, or just to understand the forms if we're not available, this is a great resource. They have the legal guide to the 3 different coronavirus property, the PED forms. They have another one on PED. They got one on the listing agreement, the RLA CAA. So there's some great stuff in there, videos in there. So just use that as a resource too, if you can't get a hold of us. And we will probably pick that up soon, Mark and I, to do another call to go through the forms again, now that we're married into this. And it looks like we're going to be maintaining this market for a while based upon what the heck's going on in the news about coronavirus. Hopefully we'll be able to get under control.
So,
And then, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, Robert, before you move on to the next form, on the CVA form, I just want to let everybody know that, you can add that, even if your client's not a high-risk client, you can add that form into the purchase agreement as a condition. It's basically, think of it like this, it's basically a predetermination of what the parties would do if a coronavirus issue arose with one of the parties in the transaction. We're going to extend escrow, we're going to extend our contingency period, or we're going to agree to mutually cancel. And the thing that I'm seeing a lot in forms, the CVA forms are included with the purchase offer, but no choices have been made in section 4 or 5. You have to complete section 4 and 5. So
yeah, we see a lot of blank ones. It's quite common. I don't want to say it's comical, but it is comical. It's like, why add the form? The next 2 forms is the PED, the Property Entry Advisory, and the BPPP, which is attached to that. So that should be added. And it's really more of a storage, right, Mark?
well, this is an interesting point, because I saw a PED V today where it was signed with the name of the broker, not a person's name, but the name of the brokerage on the signature line, ABC Realty. And it didn't have a person's name on it. It didn't even have the name of the visitor, the buyer, on it. So as a listing agent, you can turn a visitor away if they have not filled out this form and gotten it to you before they want to make the visit. Because think of it like this, you're protecting your seller's environment by getting this declaration from the visitor saying, hey, I'm not sick, and I agree to abide by the rules. I'm not going to touch anything, all those things that are on there. So as a listing agent, you should get this in advance of the showing. And if it's not filled out correctly, kick it back. It's also, we keep this in our transaction records for contact tracing. That everybody's heard about contact tracing. And where it comes into play here is if someone, the seller, let's just say as example, suddenly has a change in their health condition, and we have a duty then to advise all the visitors that visited that property that there's been a change in the occupant or the seller's health status. And we can't do that if the form's not in our possession and not completed correctly, identifying who visited the property on what day.
And so just so you guys know, Mark and I are on a call every Friday with CAR, and it's a statewide call with all the top brokers in the state. This is our Friday call. And by the end of the call, we have a headache because it's every broker in the state of California trying to figure out these forms and then asking questions and then playing out real life scenarios.
There's about 230 to 250 attendees on these Zoom calls every Friday for 90 minutes.
And so by the time we're done, we're both toast because we're like, I don't want to talk about another freaking coronavirus form ever. And then they say, oh, we're changing them next week. Look for the updated form. So I appreciate you guys just rolling with the punches on going through this today. I know it's really kind of monotonous and boring. No, I do this, Mark and I do this every Friday. And quite honestly, I think every agent on this in this industry deserves, I don't know, $100 million bonus just to make it through this period. Because you're going to look back when we get through this and look back on this, you're like, what did I learn? What did I learn? Because guess what? If you don't understand what you learned, you're going to keep repeating it. So learn the lessons necessary as we go through this and know that this is a learning experience. And that's what we're here. That's what we're here in this time-space reality, is to learn. And if we don't learn, the lessons keep coming back. Anyway, little wisdom there. Okay, next form. And the estimated buyer's cost. This is the estimated buyer's cost for them to purchase the property, so that they're aware once they get into escrow exactly what they need to bring in. And this is important because a buyer really kind of needs to know what their expectation is in the next 30 days from a standpoint of when they get to close the loan. And you know, if I have some lenders on the phone, they can validate that all of a sudden the buyers are like, they're so close, they don't have enough money. And then this is what you're doing, is you're coughing up some of your commission to close the sale. And if you had that worked out up front from a risk management perspective, but from also just to have the buyers on the same page of what they can expect to bring in, will help you in the long run, so that the buyers aren't stressed out. You're not trying to get all the money you can in and you're giving up some of your commission to close. And usually, you know, it's 50% of the time there's some type of issue with closing, either regards to closing costs or credits or getting stuff fixed. You're all in the business. You know what happens. I mean, I'm sure you can put in the chat box how much money you've had to cough up in the last 6 months out of your own commission. Vinny says 50% of the time, it's 100% of the time. Great. So, and then Mark, am I missing something on the EBC? Why, from a risk management, why it needs to be in there besides that?
Well, we're really just trying to let the buyer know ahead of time before they're contractually committed that, you know, these are the costs that you can expect to pay in the transaction. And the key word in this is estimated. It doesn't have to be carved in stone. Yeah. And it'll be refined as the escrow process proceeds. But even if you give a buyer this form and it says that, you know, they may have a wire transfer fee on there or something like that, but there's no amount listed, at least you've told them that's a possible fee. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll recommend to agents that they just do an estimated buyer's cost based upon the pre-approval amount. You don't have to do one for every property. You just have to do one and give it to the buyer before they sign a contract.
Next thing is the comparative market analysis. Hopefully, I mean, I know the market is fast moving and you're just trying to write an offer, but hopefully you're doing some type of CMA on that property. So here's how this could play out. Let's say you don't do a CMA on a property and you just tell the buyer that, you know what, it's listed at 500, but there's 20 offers and you need to come in at 525. Well, you need to substantiate your claim that it could be made 525, or you need to substantiate the claim that it's coming in at 500, but then you're documenting and memorializing in an email that there's 20 other offers and the listing agent is saying this. Because what you want to prevent from, you know, let's say you get through escrow, the buyer closes escrow, they win the deal, and then 6 months later, they think they overpaid for the property. And they come back on you and state, well, you told me to get it for this, and now I overpaid and you didn't guide me right. But if you show them that they signed the CMA stating at 500 that you put together, they opted to pay 525, then that would make your case stronger if they wanted to come back on you. And that's kind of why we have the CMA as a opening document. And then the market conditions advisory, that's basically, hey, the market's moving. You need to investigate it and know the market. And then the one document that gets removed because people think, well, I'm not using any of the affiliates. I'm not using A+ Escrow or Movement Mortgage. Right now, it's just A+ Escrow is on that affiliate business arrangement disclosure. So we are required as an office by RESPA to disclose that we have a relationship with A+ Escrow because we have it's kind of a financial arrangement where we may derive income from our escrow company. And RESPA says that if you are recommending, whether or not they use it or not, if you're affiliated with any of these businesses, you have to disclose that you have an affiliation. Because let's say you don't disclose it, that we have an affiliation with A+ Escrow, but A+ Escrow is the company that was picked for the transaction. And they went through escrow, and then later the buyer discovers that we had a financial arrangement, meaning they think that we got a kickback because we pushed them to use A+ Escrow. That's why you have to disclose that relationship. So it is a RESPA violation by not disclosing it, even if you're not using A+ Escrow. Mark, did I explain that well enough?
Yeah, it's just one of those forms that's predefined in RPA section 6, and I think it's RLA section 19. I can't remember exactly. And please don't take it out. That's why it's there, is we just need to advise people of the relationship. It doesn't mean that you're using that service.
And then the next form is an additional agent. This would only apply if you have another agent that is working in the transaction, meaning they're meeting the buyers at the property, they're helping with the transaction, different than a coach. So a coach is not required to help with the people in launch to use this form, but it's mostly if anybody else is working in the transaction. So where this plays out would be like with a team. Let's say a team on the buyer's agent goes out and does the transaction, makes the deal, and then some of the process is handled by different team members. So that AAA, anybody that's handling or touching that transaction has to use the AAA. And then if applicable, if they're buying the property in the name of a trust or an LLC or corporation, we need the RCSD-B. And then of course, the all more important AVID, which we should bold that, Mark, but that AVID, as what we talked about last week, the AVID has to be delivered in disclosures as outlined in the timeframes in the RPA. And as an industry, they're not that good at getting their AVIDs done. Nobody on this group though, you're all pretty good at it. Now we'll move into the listing side. And why is it the same thing on the listing side? So pretty much take a listing. Again, if you take a listing, we need to have the initial review done within 2 business days. And when you load the template, the AD, the PRBS, the wire fraud, the RLA, the SA, and the CCPA are all in one. So you would actually, that would be those we get 99% of the time because they're all included in the same thing. And then the new COVID form related to listings is the RLA-CAA. That's the residential listing agreement COVID amendment advisory. And again, we'll go into that form at a later time, but if you also want to go to the Car Realtor YouTube page on how to fill out that form, we're making that mandatory right now. And attached to that form is the PED-S and the BPPP. So it's all inside one form, and the seller will need to sign those at the time of the listing.
That form puts the seller on notice as to what our brokerage's protection policy is for them. So we've adopted a protection policy that says we will do certain things in certain ways to help minimize the possibility of someone contracting COVID. It's just explained in this BPPP. So it's very important that you provide that to the seller. The RLA CAA has some checkboxes on it that are optional items. You may or may not choose to have those checked with the, based on conversation with the seller, but the form itself should always be included with a listing.
So I'm going to beat this like a drum until somebody does this, but the BPPP should be used as a marketing tool to get more listings, because sellers are very concerned about people coming in their house, and the BPPP basically outlines how we protect them. And so if I was prospecting for listings and I wanted to speak to a seller that may have a concern about how they sell their home in a COVID environment, that might be a form that I would go and then add, not the form, but add in some type of, modify my pre-listing packet and add the language that's in the BPPP to show what you do to protect them. Because the stories we get all the time, remember, we're getting sellers that are, we talked about, having disclosures that a seller might have a Ring device or a video camera, and sellers are watching, if they have it, they're watching buyers come in. So these sellers are very concerned about people traipsing in COVID into their homes. And I would be using everything on that BPPP to show what you are doing to protect them, why they should list with you. Just a thought, guys. I haven't seen anybody do it yet, but I'm hoping to see it soon. And then the seller's listing information checklist. Mark, this is about 10% of the time. Does it come back?
Yeah, it's starting to be more used more, and it's a SDAR form that they've created to give you information about the property. And things that turn up on here, like you go to the listing appointment and all of a sudden you find out that it's not an individual seller, the property's held in the name of their trust, or that there's a second HOA. There's a series of questions on here. And this form, I would recommend that what you do is not say, Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller, you have to fill this out tonight during the listing appointment. It's a leave behind, or it's an item that you send before the listing appointment. And you say, can you please fill out this information? That form has saved the bacon for a number of listing agents because it's had information on it that could have potentially been a listing agent expense if they hadn't addressed it correctly. So please use that SLIC form.
And I'm just reading through the chat box. You guys are freaking funny. Bridget goes, but Judge, it's California. Doesn't everyone overpay for their homes? John Fields, I was recorded on a Ring yesterday commenting on how overpriced the house was. Luckily, the listing agent just laughed. You guys are cracking me up. So hopefully you'll start incorporating the SLIC, because it can, as Mark said, if you like bacon, save your bacon. Carl doesn't eat bacon, so he doesn't care about bacon. Then the next form, if applicable, but pretty much 99% are applicable, the authorization to exclude. There's the CAR form, and then there's the SCMLS form, if you're with SCMLS. So making sure you have that filled out, and they just recently updated that. There's another new video on how to fill that out as well too. So look for that. And then the MLS all fields report. This is after you enter into the MLS. You need to have the seller sign and date to confirm the data entered is correct. Well, I was going to go into why they needed it, but that's basically the reason. It's your checks and balances with the seller that you have put everything in the MLS correct, and your seller has looked at it and said, yes, all that's correct. So let's play this out. if you don't have the all fields report, and let's say that you inadvertently put something wrong in the MLS, and God forbid it was square footage, and it ended up being a lawsuit because of square footage, it's a checks and balance to have that in there to make sure. And to show that, no, this is what I put in there and this, you've signed off on it. So it helps limit your risk and liability on it.
This is a standard Paragon report. If you go into Paragon and you look for reports, you'll see one called All Fields. It's not the buyer's report. It's not the listing or not the agent's report. There's a report called All Fields, and it has every data entry field on the MLS on this report. And this is especially important if you're delegating MLS entry to someone like a assistant or a virtual assistant, you definitely want that information checked to make sure it's done correctly.
John Fields, you're busting me up. You guys go read his comments. I think John is drinking today.
We're going to have to invite Mo to the Zoom meeting so that there's no swearing in the chat box.
Share the address, says Joe to John. All right, then you do the CMA, same thing. You've got to do a CMA. Obviously, you're doing a CMA when you do a listing presentation. Joseph wants to unmute John so he can speak Spanish. And then the estimated seller proceeds report. Yeah, and you can get this done through title too. And this is part of your standard listing presentation where you bring an estimated, again, it's estimated, it's not 100%, it's estimated based upon where they want to fit in at when they price or when they take their home to market, and then what their expectations are to put in their pocket. And then the market conditions advisory, again, the affiliated business disclosure, I won't cover that again, we have. And then the AAAA, and then the representative capacity. This brings up a point too. If you ever take a listing in a trust, or owned by an LLC or corporation, you have to take the listing in the name of that entity. And that's where the RCSD-S. And if you've never done it, it's okay. We have a really cool graphic Word document that or PDF that I can send you to show you exactly how you put the names in the fields in your zip forms. And it's foolproof. You just have to read it. And then, of course, the agent's visual inspection disclosure needs to be in your opening documents. Again, that needs to be sent over with the disclosures, delivered with the disclosures to the buy side. And the TDS is not complete if that AVID is not sent over. The law changed this year, and you need to be aware of this. If you do not get your AVIDs sent to the other side, either side has a right of rescission. Even, Mark, you said post-close, there's a possibility they could do it post-close?
We don't have clarification on that, but in some cases, rescission can be after close of escrow as well.
Okay. And then the final things on this, then once you get your initial review, easy peasy, you sail through your escrow, everything's good, buyers are happy, sellers are giving you $20,000 in credits because the place is a piece of boo-boo, and the buyer's happy, and you get ready to close and go. You're so excited, your buyers are excited, you get the keys, and just make sure though, 5 days prior to close of escrow, you got to request what's called a final review, because Mark needs time to review the file to make sure everything's in there. And these are just the opening documents. There's still other documents that need to be in there. And you'll know that based upon the transaction, and he'll let you know, you'll need to add this form, this form, this form. And then Nancy and Drew has to make sure that they process and get the commission request done in time, so you get your check in time. That's the whole reason why we want to get your check in time. We want to make sure as soon as that closes and we get that check, you can come pick it up and you can go celebrate that weekend with John speaking Spanglish on a beach in Puerto Vallarta, or maybe at Papas and Beers in down south of the border once we're able to go there. So, but everything's a process to make sure that you guys get paid on time, and that's really what we want to do. Okay. with that said, I think I just want to make sure you all have that bookmarked, the YouTube website for the car realtors, and then this KW Metro folder. And then, oh, also in this is a W-9 that if you ever are sending a referral out that they require it, that's where you'll get the W-9 to send to the agent on the other side. So that said, are there any questions on any of those forms? I know that was like forms committee today, really exciting. Be on the car call this Friday with me. You'll have an even more fun. So what did we learn today? We learned that John can speak Spanish when he drinks. He has a hard time keeping his mouth shut when he's showing property by saying it's overpriced. Nikki's on her balcony at the office watching this. And that's about it. I guess nobody has any questions. So we have only 14 minutes left. So hopefully Ashley's still awake and even Nancy are finished with their workout. And I know Steven's listening.
Almost done, Bob, almost done.
And Vinny's watching something on his TV. His neck is always up that way looking at something. So that's it, guys.
I think, Robert, we could, mention just a couple things that came up this week, like with commissions. Get those into the MCA as soon as possible. Nancy or Drew, is it one business day after opening? I can't remember the rule on that. When a commission needs to be submitted.
She's
What
not
was
paying attention.
The question was, what's your policy on when you want the agents to submit their commissions once they've opened escrow? Is it the same day, next day?
48 hours.
48
Within
hours.
48 hours.
Okay, great. And then another thing that came up this week was that, you as agents, when you're working on your opportunities in command, you can change the status and you should change the status of it as it progresses through escrow. But when it closes, don't change the status of your opportunity to close. Leave it the way it is. The MCA will upload the closing documents to the opportunity when they receive that package from escrow, and then they will change the status to close. If you change an opportunity status to close before that happens, we can't find the opportunity. We can't search for it any longer. It basically disappears from search. So please don't change your opportunity statuses to closed. The MCA will do that for you.
So Dave's asking a question, where do you find the BPPP in zip forms?
Yeah, the BPPP is a standalone form in zip forms, and I think it's in the COVID-19 section, but it is also attached to the RLA-CAA along with the P to S. So that's a 3-form template.
And then Nikki's asking, what do you mean submit commission? So submitting commission means Nancy then can create the CDA. So once you submit for the commission, then Nancy and Drew go to work making sure that they do your CDA to get paid.
And a lot of times their TC will be doing that for them in command.
All right, guys, you're all doing a great job. I'm very proud of you. Again, I spoke last week. I'm asking your guys to help save the industry. And if you see any agents out there, just educate them. Tell them where to go. Great thing would be, if you really want to learn how to work in this environment, come over to KW Metro and speak to Steven, because, we're up in sales in July. We're going to have a really good July and a really good August. So you guys are rocking it in the industry. You got to be really proud of yourself. And there's a lot of agents out there that don't know what the F they're doing. And I'm sure you guys run across them all day long. So just invite them over to Keller Williams, because we're going to still be here after the apocalypse and all the bombs drop. It'll be Keller Williams, Cher, and cockroaches. So we'll be here. All right, guys.
Thank you, everyone.